Bem-vindo a vocês, viu? Um prazer aí, Puta, é delicioso ver o auditório assim com vocês, todo mundo presente. Obrigado aí pelo tempo de vocês aí durante esses 2 dias. Eu sempre costumo agradecer o tempo de vida das pessoas, né, dedicados a alguns assuntos. E nesses 2 dias, a partir de agora, vocês são nossos. Então, a gente precisa agradecer aí. Muito obrigado aí pelo prestígio de vocês terem se deslocado, parado a vida de vocês e vindo aqui colaborar com a gente nesse hackathon, que a gente espera brilhar e ganhar. Ok? Acho que tem algumas informações que a gente precisa passar, né, Leozinho? Você quer... Toma frente aqui, por favor. Meu nome é Érico.
Pessoal, bom dia, eu sou o Léo. Eu acho que conversei com todos vocês, ou via Slack, ou via e-mail, ou aqui. Mas, para quem não me conhece, prazer, eu sou o Léo. Eu tenho só algumas informações que chegaram de última hora. A gente teve algumas mudanças de cronograma. Nós tínhamos até o primeiro dia para submeter as ideias, né? Então era até 11h59 da data de hoje para submeter essas ideias. E isso mudou para 10 horas do horário local de cada hub. Então, a partir do momento que vocês estiverem interagindo com os mentorandos de vocês, por favor, reforcem essa informação para que a gente não perca nenhuma ideia no primeiro dia, por favor. De hoje. Eles têm até as 22 de hoje. A ideia, tá? Não precisa ter o protótipo de alta, não, tá?
É só registrar assim, na parte de câncer a gente vai falar sobre isso. A equipe é tal. Ponto. É isso, é escrever a ideia.
Precisa ter o nome de todos os participantes, mas só uma pessoa precisa registrar, certo? Nome do grupo, ideia e os participantes. Outra coisa, nós aqui entendemos que todos os mentores estão livres para mentorar todas as ideias, mas a gente pede que vocês levem o compliance muito a sério. Se vocês já conhecem um grupo e já conhecem uma ideia, peço que vocês tratem com respeito os outros grupos também. Eu sei que tem muita gente de mercado aqui que conhece muita gente, então esse é só nosso único pedido. Mentorem todos, se divirtam e botem para quebrar.
Isso é sério, assim, tá, gente? E até eu acho que o Hackathon é um grande momento de aprendizado de todo mundo, né? Então, acho que quanto mais vocês circularem... A gente fez questão de ter muita gente mesmo, tá? Primeiro porque eu acho que é um momento... Eu consigo tirar vocês da rotina de vocês, né? Que sempre é legal, né? Principalmente quem tem filho pequeno, né? Vem pra cá, a gente descansa quando tá... Né?
O cara tem gêmeos.
Puta, eu que tenho gêmeos de 6 anos, então toda vez que eu venho trabalhar eu descanso. Na realidade, quando eu chego em casa eu trabalho. Então... Mas, assim, eu acho que esse é um evento, dos participantes, dos mentees, mas é um evento nosso também. Eu acho que a gente tem que aproveitar esse momento aqui para fazer um network aqui. O Hub Inova HC, a Monzo aqui, o Inova HC, o HC em si, ele está de braços abertos para vocês e a gente espera que essa relação que está começando hoje seja uma relação duradoura. A gente quer vocês hoje e sempre. Vai ser hoje a gente namora, pega na mão, beija, e depois a gente fica namorando à distância, se for o caso, mas namorando. A gente quer os cérebros de vocês aqui colaborando com o que a gente pretende fazer em termos de hub de inovação e com o objetivo de transformar aí a saúde brasileira. Não é um trabalho fácil. O ambiente que a gente está aqui, o HC, por ser um hospital público, tem as suas vantagens, tem as suas desvantagens, mas a gente tem um filmezinho lá antigo, né? O pessoal mais prateado aí. Os jovens há mais tempo, eu digo, né? Não são pessoas mais velhas, né? São jovens há mais tempo, sabe, né? Tem um filme que se chama Retroceder Nunca, Render-se Jamais, né? A gente não desiste e a gente vai construir aqui um ambiente, um ecossistema e um hub de inovação em saúde aqui que vai ser o maior da América Latina e a gente conta com vocês para isso, tá bom? Começando hoje, né?
Pessoal, é isso. Se divirtam. Esse não vai ser o primeiro. Vamos ganhar. E boa sorte.
Como é que você quer fazer? O pessoal vai vir para cá? Ou você...
A gente quase continua. Eu vou chamar alguns, mas a gente está transmitindo nas TVs.
Tá? Só vou dar uma passada. Tá? Acho que a gente pode chamar também...
A gente vai ter um momento agora de introdução. Aí vai falar
Pessoal que está ouvindo nas TVs aí, dá um grito bem alto para eu ouvir, por favor. Acho que ninguém está ouvindo?
Tem delay. Porque tem o delay, né?
Gritem mais alto, por favor.
A gente vai fazer, então, uma aberturazinha, umas pílulas de conhecimento para os participantes, e depois a gente já entra ao vivo com o Boss. O professor vai fazer uma abertura.
Tá ouvindo? As televisões estão transmitindo?
É Paulo Gato.
Tá com muito delay? Bom, beleza. Vamos começar com as pílulas de conhecimento. Acho que a gente pode até trazer algumas pessoas para cá, né? Trazer uns alunos para cá. Pessoal que está circulando pelo Hub, pode entrar aqui no auditório, ocupar as cadeiras aqui para a gente poder começar as nossas pílulas de conhecimento aí, por favor.
Alô, alô. Então, primeiro, bom dia, pessoal. Eu me chamo Thiago. Eu vou começar a conversar um pouquinho com vocês sobre as pílulas de conhecimento e dar um panorama geral do que a gente vai fazer no dia de hoje aqui com vocês. Pode pôr a apresentação, por gentileza, de proposta de valor. Primeiro, aqui quem está no anfiteatro, eu queria saber, quem que é aluno de graduação aqui? 80%, pelo menos. Quem aqui tem startup? Bacana, 2 pessoas, 3 de 20, tá. A startup de vocês já tem CNPJ? Vocês já estão trabalhando? Tá. E quem de vocês aqui tem uma ideia que vai começar a desenvolver uma ideia? Bacana, já uns 50%. Muito bem. Então, vamos otimizar essa apresentação. Então, primeiro, queria agradecer a presença de vocês, dos nossos mentores, né? Eu espero não ser redundante para vocês, mas o nosso foco aqui são os alunos, são os participantes, né, do Hackathon. Então, alguns conceitos eles vão ser retomados. Eu vou falar sobre proposta de valor, mas muito mais, qual que é o problema, né? O que é o must-have, aquilo que vocês têm que desenvolver, algo que é muito importante para o mercado, que é essa ideia que, na verdade, tem que surgir e que vocês vão apresentar em formato de pitch, né? Então, vocês estão aqui para, de fato, construir uma história para apresentar para experts e essa ser uma ideia vencedora que, no futuro, pode se tornar um produto. Passa o próximo, por favor. Eu vou ter 10 minutinhos aqui, a Simone me ajuda quando acabar o tempo. Pode ir. Muito bom. Primeiro, um conceito muito importante aqui para passar para vocês é a diferença entre criatividade e inovação. Todo mundo é criativo, todo mundo tem uma ideia, mas tem uma diferença muito grande em ter a ideia e você executar a ideia. Então, a inovação pressupõe execução. Então, como você vai tirar aquilo do papel e tornar aquilo uma prática? Como tem bastante gente da academia, eu sou da academia, eu sou médico, ortopedista, assistente, adoro operar, mas quando você pensa em colocar um produto no mercado, você vai necessariamente ter que aprender conceitos de inovação, empreendedorismo, e é isso que vocês estão fazendo aqui nesse Hackathon. Passa o próximo, por favor. Muito bem. Quem já viu aqui, tirando os mentores, né, esse gráfico do Vale da Morte, né? O que acontece? Na verdade, na academia, a gente está nesses TRLs, né? Imagina que é um lançamento de um foguete, do 1 até o 9. O 9 é quando o foguete foi lançado. E o que acontece é que a gente tem muita coisa que desenvolve na academia, que é uma ideia, mas não consegue chegar para a prática, não consegue chegar para a indústria, que é esse famoso Vale da Morte. Então, muito do nosso objetivo aqui é ajudar vocês, inclusive, terem a ideia, fazerem o protótipo e depois pensar como isso daí vai se tornar um produto. Pode ir próximo, por favor. E como que a gente consegue isso, né? A primeira ideia aqui é o design thinking, que são esses 2 diamantes. O que é importante saber? No primeiro diamante, a gente discute sobre o problema. Então, inclusive quem já tem startup, quem já está emitindo nota fiscal, quem já está faturando, a gente faz um convite para vocês para pensarem novamente no problema. E como é que a gente faz? Primeiro, diverge, a gente tem várias ideias e depois converge. Depois vocês vão selecionar aquela ideia melhor. E no segundo diamante, é mais a ver com o produto, com o POC, com o protótipo, né? Então, a mesma coisa. Imaginem como é que vai ser e depois converge de novo para ter um. Lembrar que o protótipo ele não precisa ser de alta fidelidade, não precisa estar pronto, até é ruim se está pronto. O que vocês têm que ter, na verdade, é o contrário. Alguma coisa de baixa fidelidade, por exemplo, um desenho de um aplicativo, uma foto de um aplicativo, ele não precisa estar funcional. Lembra, vocês têm que pivotar rápido, vocês têm que, se errar rápido e fazer o certo, tá? Então, a gente vai convidar vocês, durante o programa, a pensar sobre, durante aqui a atividade de vocês hoje e amanhã, a pensar sobre esses conceitos. Passa o próximo, por favor. Muito bem, e o biodesign de Stanford? O que é isso? Na verdade, a gente tem uma inclusão de um terceiro diamante, que é esse último, que fala especificamente da implementação do produto no mercado. Tá? E por que ele é importante aqui? Porque é esse must-have. Se a gente discutir um monte de ideia que, na verdade, a gente acha que é muito legal, mas que para o mercado não tem nenhum sentido, não adianta a gente discutir essa ideia. A gente tem que discutir problemas reais
e, na verdade, problemas que tenham pessoas que vão comprar, né, o seu protótipo, o seu produto. Passa o próximo, por favor. Muito bem, e esse daqui é o canvas de proposta de valor. E olha que interessante, a gente tem que conhecer o cliente, né? O Daniel está aqui, ele vai conversar um pouco com a gente sobre a persona, sobre o mapa de empatia, sobre o que as pessoas pensam, falam, escutam. Porque a gente tem que fazer o quê? A gente tem que ter essa noção do nosso cliente, o que ele precisa, né? Ou qual que é a necessidade dele, o que acontece. E o que a gente vai propor depois é algo que vai aliviar a dor. Posso próximo, por favor? Muito bem, então o Daniel vai falar melhor aqui sobre a persona. O próximo, por favor. Esse aqui é o Business Model Canvas. Veja que ele é um canvas, ele não é um plano de negócios. O canvas é uma projeção daquilo que vocês esperam que a startup de vocês, como que ela vai trabalhar. Ou seja, quem são os parceiros, quem são os clientes, como que você vai faturar. E olha quem está lá no meio, está a proposta de valor. Então, a proposta de valor, o must-have, é fundamental para vocês. Então, foquem nisso, foquem qual que é o problema que eu quero resolver e a importância desse problema. Depois vocês vão ter pílulas aqui durante o dia, tamanho de mercado, TAM Samsung, os valores e tudo mais, para validar aquilo que é importante e por que é tão importante assim o seu produto. O próximo, por favor. Muito bem. Isso é algo muito interessante. Esses são, para quem não conhece, são os Golden Circles, né, do Simon Sinek, que o porquê ele está no centro. Né? Então, a gente pega grandes empresas, a Apple. Né? A pessoa compra aquilo, ela compra o porquê, mas não o que ou o como. Você tem várias tecnologias de celular, por exemplo, que você transmite dados, né, você transmite informações. Mas por que a pessoa quer o celular da Apple, né? Então, é muito mais esse trabalho no porquê, né, que as pessoas pensam, do que o como e o quê. Então, pensem nisso, no porquê das coisas. Por que a pessoa quer fazer aquilo ou vai comprar o produto de vocês. Próximo, por favor. Lembra, né? A gente está aqui na área da saúde. Então, para quem não é da saúde, a gente tem questões muito importantes, como a parte regulatória e a necessidade de pesquisa clínica. Vocês sabem que para softwares, a gente tem os softwares as medical device, e eles são regulados pela Anvisa, tá? Então, softwares de gestão, inclusive, eles são regulados pela Anvisa, então, são cuidados que a gente tem que ter a mais. Primeiro, da parte regulatória. Próximo, por favor. E a Simone vai falar um pouco para vocês sobre como preparar o pitch daqui a pouquinho. E o storytelling é uma ferramenta muito bacana, né, de, como o próprio nome diz, de contar histórias, como se fosse um desenho animado. E é muito diferente, para quem é da academia, uma apresentação científica, acadêmica num congresso e a apresentação para experts do mercado, porque, na verdade, esses profissionais que vão avaliar vocês, por muitas vezes, eles não têm o conhecimento científico daquele assunto. Eles vão ter o conhecimento dos números, do mercado e tudo mais. Então, a linguagem que você usa para falar para essas pessoas é totalmente diferente. E o storytelling é uma ótima ferramenta, super poderosa, para vocês contarem essa história. Próximo, por favor. Então, era isso que eu queria dizer, acho que deu os 10 minutinhos. Eu fico à disposição de vocês, né, o que vocês precisarem de ajuda. Aqui estão os meus contatos. Obrigado, pessoal. Vamos convidar agora o Daniel para falar? Por favor. Obrigado. Vocês têm alguma dúvida, alguma pergunta que queiram fazer, por enquanto? A gente não tem o acesso do pessoal das outras salas, né? Mas aqui, os alunos presentes, tudo bem? Beleza. Daniel, por favor.
Fala, pessoal. Bom dia, tudo bom? Estou bem feliz de encontrar todo mundo aqui reunido para fazer parte desse projeto. E aí, como o Érico falou, né, ninguém veio aqui para participar, acho que todo mundo veio aqui para ganhar. Então, a gente está competindo contra o resto do Brasil, do mundo inteiro, né? Então, a gente está aqui em São Paulo, representando o Brasil. Tem gente em Kiev, tem gente em Boston, em vários lugares do mundo. E viemos para ganhar. Como o Dr. Thiago trouxe, eu vou falar sobre... O meu é sobre persona. Eu vou falar sobre as personas, como é que a gente pode criar um perfil de usuário que vai estar trabalhando com a gente. Então, a gente tem um período muito curto para poder começar a trabalhar nesse projeto, então a gente tem que submeter as ideias ainda hoje, e a gente vai ter uma etapa até amanhã, Mas aí como é que a gente consegue trazer um escopo tão grande, que é o que a gente está querendo endereçar aqui, para caber num espaço de tempo tão curto, que são 24 horas, para poder entregar esse projeto? Então, vamos criar personas, né? Até porque os seres humanos já são muito complexos. De uma forma bem simples, o que é que a gente está querendo fazer? Cada um dos problemas que a gente trouxe aqui, que são problemas cardiovasculares, problemas com câncer e diabetes, a gente está falando de milhões de pacientes no mundo, alguns casos até bilhões de pessoas. Todo mundo aqui conhece pelo menos 1, 2 ou 10 pessoas que ou tem problema cardiovascular, ou tem diabetes, ou já teve câncer. E então, ou está até tendo, né? Então, a grande missão que a gente tem aqui é, vamos trazer isso tudo e vamos tentar enxugar, em vez de falar do meu tio, da minha prima, da minha avó, do meu amigo, do meu vizinho, que teve uma determinada doença, como é que será que eu agrupo aquelas características e crio um perfil de usuário? Eu vou trazer um exemplo do que a gente tem feito no nosso negócio. A gente trabalha numa empresa chamada Estralo, né? Bem intuitivo, porque a gente trabalha com estralo de joelho, a gente trabalha com artrose de joelho e lombalgia. E qual era o grande desafio? Qual é o perfil de pessoas que normalmente vão ter artrose de joelho? São idosos, e aí pode ser homem, pode ser mulher. E agora também tem uma situação que a pessoa pode ter uma artrose de joelho sendo jovem, se tiver artrite reumatoide. A gente quer endereçar esse caso? Talvez não. Para o nosso perfil de cliente, para o que a gente vende, não fazia tanto sentido. Então a gente pegou e descartou. Só que ainda assim a gente queria endereçar alguns desafios de usabilidade. Então, por exemplo, se eu falo com um paciente que tem dores nas costas, né, lombalgia, normalmente esse paciente ele pode começar a ter dor lá pelos 20 anos, 30 anos. Quando eu falo de artrose, é quase que garantido que seja acima de 60. São pessoas iguais? Quais são as diferenças desse tipo de pessoas? Tem pessoas que vão estar mais ativas, tem pessoas que já podem estar praticando esporte, tem diferenças geracionais. Então, dei essa enrolada toda para chegar aqui. Isso aqui é um template que a gente fez internamente para rodar um projeto junto com o Hospital das Clínicas, onde a gente criou um título do programa, no caso, artrose de joelho. E a gente botou um espaço ali para criar um nome fictício, para a gente poder estar agrupando um grupo de pessoas, né, em torno de um conjunto de características semelhantes. Se eu fosse falar de todas as pessoas que têm artrose no Brasil, são 14% da população. Então ia dar um baita trabalho para a gente conseguir convergir em algum lugar. O que era relevante para mim? Trazer algumas coisas que trouxessem aspectos da personalidade dessa pessoa, o que ela tinha de queixa clínica, se tinha alguma queixa clínica associada ou não, se tem alguma coisa associada como, por exemplo, idade, algum aspecto geracional, e até assim, considerando que é um público tão amplo, será que vale a pena considerar alguns aspectos da sociedade que vale a pena incluir? E aí eu tenho esse exemplo aqui, que a gente fez a Maria das Dores, né? Então, um nome sempre muito intuitivo, né? Aqui no HC, a gente está trabalhando com Covid longa, né? E tem falta de ar, a gente colocou Arnaldo, né? O nome do rapaz, para ficar bem fácil de lembrar. Mas é uma brincadeira, mas isso é bem comum, porque pode facilitar. Porque na hora que eu estou discutindo... Qual é o seu nome? Quando eu estiver discutindo com o Matheus, cara, você lembra do Arnaldo? O Arnaldo talvez ele não seja muito aderente para essa solução. Você lembra da Maria das Dores? Será que a Maria das Dores se daria bem com isso? E a gente pode facilmente chegar naquele ponto. Agora, se eu falo assim, mas eu tenho uma tia, que isso? Aí você começa a perder muito tempo. E, de novo, gente, acho que vocês têm que ser muito ágeis para conseguir submeter todas as ideias ainda hoje. Não é a ideia mais complexa que ganha, né? É a ideia mais eficiente. Então, vamos chegar aqui. A gente tem uma frase, uma coisa que marque aquela pessoa, que faça a gente se lembrar dela. No caso dela, assim, ela perdia a vontade de viver, comecei a sentir várias dores. Qual é o relato, né? Qual é a queixa? O paciente se queixa, que sente muitas dores ao acordar e não gosta de fazer exercício porque sente dores quando vai fazer o exercício. Então, no nosso caso, como a gente prescreve exercício, poxa, se essa pessoa tem um medo de fazer exercício, tem um desprazer em fazer exercício, como é que a gente endereça considerando isso? Tem algumas informações relevantes, tem 70 anos, é aposentada, é viúva e sem filhos. Então, por exemplo, alguma das estratégias que a gente usa é que a gente tenta trazer um familiar para poder estar colaborando naquele tratamento, talvez com ela não seja tão eficiente. Então, isso aí já é uma coisa que não dá para endereçar, né? Tirando só o aspecto clínico do tratamento. Tem a queixa principal, a artrose de joelho, e uma coisa que a gente descobriu é que boa parte dos idosos que chegavam com essa queixa também chegavam com a queixa de fascite plantar, que é uma dor logo abaixo do pé. Então, não adiantava eu chegar e falar assim, eu vou resolver seu problema do joelho. E a pessoa, todo dia que levantasse para fazer exercício, para tratar o joelho, machucasse o pé. E tinha algumas outras patologias associadas, que era, por exemplo, depressão e hipertensão. A gente tem um caso engraçado de um paciente nosso, tem 75 anos. E ele é um cara muito ativo. Aos 65 anos, ele fez uma meia maratona. E aí ele começou a fazer os exercícios todo dia. Todo dia ele pegava meia hora, fazia 5 exercícios. Chega uma sexta-feira, a gente olha no painel, seu Francisco fez 25 exercícios. O que será que aconteceu? Provavelmente um erro do sistema, né? Porque ninguém sem consciência vai abrir um aplicativo para fazer 25 exercícios, né? Muito mais fácil, de repente, fazer uma corrida. A gente foi investigar, nada, a gente liga, seu Francisco, o que foi que aconteceu? A gente viu aqui, você clicou algum botão, a mágica, apareceu aqui no painel que você fez 25. Tava de bobeira final de semana, sabe? E aí eu comecei a fazer. Qual era o detalhe? Ele teve hipertensão. No outro dia ele ligou pra gente. É normal meu pé ficar inchado? Cara, ele não podia ter feito tanto exercício. Então a gente tinha uma funcionalidade na nossa ferramenta que era de você poder ver o dia seguinte. Pra gente que é jovem é uma maravilha, né? A gente poder se planejar. Será que amanhã vai ser muito extenuante? Que horas eu vou fazer? Será que eu vou precisar de um colchonete ou não? Só que para ele a liberdade demais foi um prejuízo, porque ele começou a ver os outros dias. Deixa eu ver o que eu posso adiantar. Eu gosto de fazer, vou pegar mais. Então, a funcionalidade, na verdade, foi um desprazer. Era muito melhor a gente tirar essa funcionalidade. E é isso que, se você usar a nossa ferramenta hoje, você não pode ver o dia seguinte. E aí tem alguns atributos que a gente vai colocando, coisas clínicas e outras talvez nem tanto, né? Robusto, uma pessoa que talvez não tenha chance grande de queda, não tem tanta disponibilidade, sofre com depressão, é uma pessoa mais analógica, que não se dá tão bem com tecnologia. E aí a gente percebeu na simulação também, quais são os eventos que sentiu durante o programa. Ela sentiu dor quando ela ia fazer algum exercício de agachamento, fazia flexão, machucava. Então vamos ter que adaptar. E depois sentiu gripe também, por causa de diminuir a imunidade. Qual é o output disso aqui? A gente começou a gerar alguns templates como esse, que é, por exemplo, na semana 1 até 4, na segunda-feira são esses exercícios. Ficou muito mais fácil entender. Por exemplo, aqui você vai ver que eu não tenho nenhuma flexão de joelho, você vai ver que eu não tenho nenhum exercício que é muito extenuante, você vai ver que tem poucos exercícios aqui que você fica em pé. Então, assim, esse é o output, né? Então, a gente tem muita gente para tratar, pouco tempo para fazer, então sejam eficientes, vamos ganhar esse projeto. Eu não poderia deixar aqui de uma frase do Hipócrates, né, o pai da medicina, às vezes a gente consegue curar, tratar a gente tem que fazer o mais frequente possível, mas confortar a gente busca fazer sempre. Se vocês quiserem acesso aos templates, basta acessar esse QR Code aqui. Muito obrigado pela atenção, pessoal.
Obrigado, viu, Daniel? Bom, então, importante, existem alguns templates, né, de persona, que é o que a pessoa faz, o que ela ouve, né, o que ela escuta, o que ela pensa. Então, quando vocês forem montar o pitch de vocês conhecerem essa persona. A persona, ela tem um nome, ela representa um determinado grupo. Então, por que ela é importante? Porque nem o Daniel disse, as pessoas se identificam, é mais fácil. Eu tenho um parente, eu mesmo tenho a dor no joelho, eu tenho um parente que tem, meu avó, meu tio, ou seja, isso daí traz a pessoa para próximo, né, do seu avaliador, principalmente, ou da pessoa que, porventura, vai investir, vai ser um patrocinador da sua ideia, ou até financeiramente vai apoiar a sua ideia. Obrigado, Daniel. Então, gostaria de convidar também a Simone agora, por gentileza, que ela vai falar sobre a apresentação do pitch. Seja bem-vinda, Simone.
Obrigada, Thiago. Bom dia a todos. Eu peço desculpas, a minha voz não está boa, porque eu estou num processo gripal. Muito feliz de ver mulheres aqui dentro, ver mulheres na sala, mulheres na mentoria, conexão total com essas meninas da saúde que estão aqui para desenvolver soluções. Vou falar sobre pitch, mas antes de falar sobre pitch, só quero rememorar o que o Dr. Tiago falou sobre proposta de valor, adicionado ao que o Daniel falou sobre persona, como colocar tudo isso dentro de uma caixa e envolver com um laço bonito. É justamente sobre isso que eu vou falar. A apresentação. A apresentação, ela é essencial, para não dizer fundamental. É na apresentação que vocês vão convencer o que, de fato, vocês estão se propondo a fazer. Então, a apresentação é utilizar boa linguagem, expressão corporal, tom de voz. Vejam que à medida que eu estou falando com vocês, eu faço as pausas naquilo que eu entendo que é interessante para que o meu ouvinte entenda. O que falar em cada slide? Então, já passaram para vocês o número de slides que vocês terão que apresentar. O primeiro slide, por favor, não coloque introdução no primeiro slide. O que eu recomendo? Por exemplo, Mindcare. Vou falar sobre a minha startup. Mindcare. Empresa que desenvolve soluções de saúde mental para colaboradores. Pronto. Essa é a abertura. E o pitch já começa falando antes de vocês. Se vocês puderem já desenvolver uma logomarca para o grupo de vocês, é importante. Simone, é importante que o grupo tenha um nome? Sim, é importante. Não vamos colocar grupo 1, grupo 2, grupo 3, porque aqui está nascendo uma futura empresa. Então, ela já vai nascer com o nome. Pode ser que esse nome mude. Próximo, então, vamos lá. Aqui, problema. Então, vocês já começam. Se puder colocar no cantinho assim da tela, ó, problema, não tem problema nenhum. Me perdoe eu ser repetitiva, tá? No primeiro, não precisa colocar a introdução, mas aqui você já coloquem o problema. De forma clara, com números e de forma objetiva, qual é o problema que vocês se propõem a resolver. Aqui, identificar quem vive o problema. Novamente, voltando à apresentação do Daniel. É a Maria das Dores? Qual é a jornada da Maria das Dores? Como é a vida dela? Quais são os pontos de fricção da jornada dela? Tamanho do mercado. Mercado de entrada, potencial e mercado total. Isso depois nós vamos avaliar com vocês rapidinho, tá? Proposta de valor, funcionalidades e despertar a curiosidade. Proposta de valor é entendido como benefícios. Modelo de negócio, e aí se é B2B, B2C, B2G, isso é importante vocês definirem também. Concorrentes, fundamental vocês pesquisarem se existem concorrentes para a solução de vocês no mercado. Se existir, qual é o diferencial de vocês sobre essa concorrência? Avançando um pouquinho mais, aqui eu dou total atenção. Roadmap. O roadmap é um mapa de navegação. O que vocês vão fazer depois que sair daqui? Porque a ideia não vai morrer aqui. Então, vocês coloquem lá. O que nós vamos desenvolver no mês de maio, junho, julho, tá bom? Avançando um pouquinho mais. Time é o coração do negócio. Vamos colocar fotinhas bonitinhas, bem apresentável do grupo. E aqui vocês podem colocar, por exemplo, Simone, CEO, Tiago, co-founder, e a formação de cada um. Não é o currículo Lattes, por favor, tá? Avançando um pouquinho mais, e aqui, uma chamada para ação. Então, vou falar da Mindcare. Cuide dos seus colaboradores e nós cuidamos da saúde mental. E aí vocês colocam o WhatsApp, podem criar redes sociais ficcionais, entendeu? Vocês estão apresentando uma empresa, não é um time especificamente, mas sim uma empresa. Eu fico à disposição, meu LinkedIn é Simone Hipólito, e eu vou rodar em todos os times para orientar a apresentação de vocês. Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigado, Simone. Tanto a Simone quanto esse time aqui fantástico de mentores vai estar à disposição de vocês para orientar, para organizar as ideias. Novas pílulas de conhecimento também vão ser dadas durante o evento, havendo a necessidade, a gente identificando aqui a necessidade de vocês. Vamos passar novamente aqui para o Érico, que, se eu não me engano, a gente já vai entrar com o link lá de Harvard.
Olá, pessoal, tudo bem? O pessoal pediu para a gente antecipar 15 minutos, estava previsto para começar às 10 horas local. Eles pediram para a gente fazer o link às 9h45, que vai começar, então, o evento aí simultâneo nos 7 países. Tá bom? E só reforçando, como o Thiago falou, no decorrer do dia, ou logo depois da apresentação oficial aí simultânea nos outros países, a gente vai passar algumas orientações a respeito de regras, como que vai transcorrer o Hackathon. E aí, na sequência, como todas as televisões aqui do Hub estão conectadas e sincronizadas aí no link, a gente vai prosseguir com mais algumas algumas dicas aí, a gente nomeou aí de pílulas de conhecimento, já que a gente está dentro do hospital, né? Então, que são pílulas, tá bom? Obrigado, viu? Só aguardar agora a conexão. David, por favor.
Jake, can you hear us?
Yes, Gabby.
If you are listening to us on the chat.
Yes, we can hear you,
Okay.
Gabby. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, can you listen now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You hear us well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We cannot see you yet.
Yeah, we're gonna turn on the cameras in a minute.
Okay, great. There's an echo now. You should be able to
Yep.
share your screen.
Yes,
Maybe
that's great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Perfect. So feel free to turn off your camera or get some tea. We'll begin.
Yes, good idea. Okay.
Hi, Rifat.
Yes. Hi, good morning. Great to see you.
How are you? Very excited.
Excellent. Very excited. Yes. Fantastic.
Great. So as all the hubs come in, we're just waiting for the panelists to join. So we'll give them a few minutes. But we'll begin in a few more minutes at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
But good to see Kiev logged in, Santiago, Chile, Sao Paulo, London, and Peru, Chiclayo is already online. So we're waiting on Lima and the panelists. So we're getting.
Can you hear us? Rifat?
Yes.
Yes, very clear.
Yes, okay. So we cannot hear them.
You cannot hear us?
Ya, yo lo puedo escuchar, pero muy bajito. Yo lo puedo escuchar a él, pero muy bajito.
No se escucha.
El sonido de ellos, ahí empieza la microfonía. El micrófono de acá.
Ya. Ah,
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
perfect. Then we can hear you very well.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
But Rifat, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, it's solved. Okay.
Very
so we can-
clearly.
So it's a real pleasure to see you. Rifat.
Yeah, great to see you, brother.
Here,
Wonderful to
here.
see you. Yes.
So we're going to have so much fun. We're very happy.
Yes.
So you are connected with other countries or not yet?
Yes, we have Sao Paulo, Brazil. We have
Yeah, great, great.
Boston. We have the Hive in Argentina. We
Yeah,
have Chiclayo in Peru. We have
Yeah,
Kiev,
okay.
Ukraine. Yeah, we have
Yeah.
London Hub, King's College London. So yes,
Perfect. So we're going to have so much fun. We're very happy. Huh?
yes.
No, pues, pero es que nosotros no nos estamos viendo en este momento. No.
Probando, probando. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Again, can you say you're hearing us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Can you hear us in Lima?
Yes, welcome, Lima. We can see and hear you.
Awesome. Great. Hackathon, equipo Boston, ¿ustedes lo escuchan bien? ¿El micrófono está no? Hola.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
We can hear and see you. Perfect.
Awesome. And can you hear us well? Because I'm far
Yes.
from the. Yeah, awesome.
Crystal clear.
Cámara. Ya. ¿Estamos bien? A ver, ¿podemos prender el aire? ¿No pongo calor?
Hello. Are you connecting from Kings?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Sí, 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 era otro. Y la cámara podemos bajar.
Hello, Junaid. Welcome. We'll
Hi
start
everyone.
in a
Sorry,
few
I'm running a
minutes.
little bit late, so I'm just in the car, but I'll
Yeah.
hopefully be on my desk in about 10 minutes or so. But
Yeah,
here
no
for you.
worries. Hello, Beth. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How are you, Jay?
Yeah, good, good. So all the hubs have connected, and we'll begin in a few minutes. Hello, Ricardo. Welcome.
Hello, how are you? Hello, everyone.
Good.
Can I hear us? Yes, fantastic. Good morning, good evening, everyone.
Good morning. Evening. Good to see you.
Greetings from Ukraine, Kiev. Good to see everybody.
Excellent. So,
Can I see?
Rifat, I think we have all hubs connected.
Yep, I'm ready. Just
And
tell
we
me
have
when.
the list, so we can begin when you're ready.
Yes,
Over to you.
okay. Well, without further ado, I will begin. Well, how so exciting is it to welcome 8 hubs to our 5th Health System Innovation Lab Hackathon. As they say, it takes a village to make this happen, and this has been an incredible effort by my team at Health System Innovation Lab, as well as many friends, colleagues, and collaborators across many countries. Before I go into the details of the hubs, I want to say a few words, and before I say a few welcoming words, I want to say a few words about the Health System Innovation Lab. So I'm going to share my presentation, and I hope this is visible to everyone. Yes. Good. Yeah. So this hackathon, our 5th hackathon, 5th in this series, focuses on building high-value health systems, harnessing digital health and artificial intelligence. And we're focusing on 3 major areas: cardiovascular disease and diabetes, cancer, and mental health, all very important areas of burden for global health that need that are in terrible need of solutions. And you can see various logos of all the collaborating institutions that have made today and tomorrow this hackathon possible. So at the Health System Innovation Lab, we research, we teach, and we innovate. We are a multidisciplinary team and international, very international in orientation and background of more than 50 individuals, researchers. We are very research active. We publish regularly in the top journals in the world. Just in the last 2-3 years, we've had more than 50 publications. We bring together, as part of our team, but also in our network, leading experts in global health systems, high-value health systems, and innovation. And we collaborate with more than 30 countries across all world regions. And we're involved in teaching 4 Harvard graduate courses and multiple executive education programs. And we've convened 5 hackathons, this being the 5th edition, since 2018. In spite of the pandemic, we're able to move forward, and we iterated and innovated in the approach that we've taken, doing virtual as well as hybrid versions. And this year, we're doing an in-person version across several countries. And in these hackathons, to date, we've tended to focus on specific areas, realizing that global health was just too big. And our sweet spot at the moment is chronic illness in relation to NCDs. And in these hackathons, we've collaborated widely, including with the private sector, with Microsoft, Novo Nordisk, Novartis Foundation, Roche, and many, but to name a few. And we've organized hackathons that focus just on the US. Then we had specific hackathons for Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And this is our global edition. And we've had more than 25 transplanted ventures that have emerged from these hackathons that are currently functional. So welcome to the 5th edition. Building high-value health systems, harnessing digital health and artificial intelligence. We have 8 global hubs and 3 tracks, as I mentioned, and we have more than 500 participants. We've had more than 2,000 applicants, and we had to, unfortunately, because of space constraints, narrow down the applicants to around 500. I'm going to call out each of the hubs to say a few words. But first of all, let me extend some thanks. First of all, Nur Sharer and Caroline Bolstra, along with the team, with Shay and others at Boston, who've been working extremely hard over the last few months to make today happen. In Boston, the lead was Buktavar and other members of the Jake Figge and others who've been working very hard. In Buenos Aires, we had Andres Anania and the team. In Kiev, Natalia Piven as the contact point and the team. In Lima and Chiclayo in Peru, Ramiro Arteaga and the team. In London, Joseph Starr and Leidu and the team. In Sao Paulo, we have FGV and Innova HC, and Adriano Masuda, Giovanna Guido, and Eriko Theodorovitz and the team. And last but not least, in Santiago, my good friends Carolina Goich, Bruno Nervi, and our team member Gabi Bor, and of course, many other team members. So I'm going to ask each of the hubs to say a few words and just to introduce themselves and wave hands. So we'll start with Boston. I'll hand over to the IT team to make the magic happen.
Boston, over to you. You can unmute yourself and introduce the team and all the participants. That'll be great.
That's why we need the digital technology and AI to make technology work.
Okay, can you hear us?
We have a ChatGPT solution to Boston. Okay, Boston, are we online?
Hi, do you hear us?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Yes, Buster from
thank you.
Yeah, we're joining with over 50 people and some more coming, so thank you all for joining.
Wonderful. So I recorded the number of decibels that you generated. So that's a high bar for the rest of the hubs. So let's move to Buenos Aires.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, greetings from Buenos Aires, Argentina. My name is Francisco. I am from the Health Hub. We are the central node for innovation in healthcare for the Austral University, the Austral Hospital, and the EI Business School. And there's more than 70 people in here participating in this hackathon. So I would like you all to make some noise.
Great, excellent. I think that's a higher decibel count compared to Boston, but I'll ask the IT team to give the final result. Wonderful. Welcome on board, Argentina. Great to have you. So let's move to Chiclayo, our first hub in Peru.
Rifat, I think we just lost Chiclayo, unfortunately, so we can.
Okay, we can move to Kiev in that case. Let's move to Kiev, Ukraine.
Can you hear us?
Yes. Wow.
Greetings from Kiev. Greetings from Kiev. Greetings from Kiev. Yeah, warm welcome from every one of us here in Ukraine. We have over 130 participants with us today, and hopefully you can see them online. A big shout out from everybody. Woo!
Hey.
And we have over 30 moderators also assisting us today. So a packed house here and very much looking forward to the next 3 days. And yeah, back to you. Thank you.
Wonderful, and welcome Kiev, Ukraine, especially in the middle of very difficult times in your country. Really appreciate your participation. So big round of applause for Ukraine, everyone. Excellent. So let's move to, I don't know if Peru is online, we'll move to Lima. Oh, Ramiro.
Thank you, welcome. Bienvenidos todos a la hackathon de Harvard aquí en Perú. And thank you, Rika, for your presentation. My name is Ramiro Rodríguez, as I said, and we are with Jimmy Noe from Roche and Penelope Bro from Universidad Cayetano Heredia, is the Innovation Lab of the University.
Yeah, welcome, Ramiro. Really great to see you, and great to welcome our collaborators from Peru. Let's move to London, King's College.
This is from London. We have more than 20 people here, and it's a great pleasure to be part of this hackathon.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome. It's the first time London is collaborating as a hub, so we welcome you especially, and I look forward to seeing you later today. Wonderful. So let's now move to Sao Paulo. We have FGV and Innova 8C. Yes. Wow. Great. Fantastic. Well, welcome Brazil. Welcome Sao Paulo. FGV and Innova 8C. We look forward to the outstanding work. So let's now move to Santiago, Chile.
Very fast.
Hey, Bruno.
We're very happy to participate this year for first time. So we thank you very much. Thank you, Gabriela, from your team, who is doing a great job. So we have near 25 very young and enthusiastic researchers, and we hope we're going to have a great time. So we're very happy to participate with everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Looking forward to hacking with you. Thank you and welcome. And then hopefully we have Peru Chiclayo online now as our last hub.
I think Chiclayo and Lima are together.
Will participate.
Oh, they're together?
No, good morning.
Oh, we have Maria.
I think Chiclayo is having a few problems with the connection, but Maria must be already connected.
Okay, so maybe while we are waiting, we'll move to our panelists and panel discussion, and we can say hi to Chiclayo as and when they're ready. They can signal to the IT team, and then we'll bring them on board. So what an amazing group in so many different countries. And again, huge thanks to everyone who've been involved in organizing this hackathon. I can only top up this amazing group with an outstanding panel, opening panel. And I'm really honored and privileged to introduce our panel, a really distinguished group, and I can call them my good friends. And first of all, Junaid Bajwa, who is the Chief Medical Scientist at Microsoft Research. He's also a practicing physician. He's been doing many things around the world, but he's continued to practice in London as a physician in the UK National Health Service. He is a visiting scientist at Harvard School of Public Health. He completed the leadership program at Harvard, which we ran with the Kennedy School many years back. He's also a clinical associate professor of UCL, University of London, and he is also a visiting associate fellow at the Stanford Center for Artificial Intelligence in Medicine and Imagining and Imaging. And of course, he's at the forefront of AI developments and solutions. So I'll start with Junaid, but let me introduce all the panelists first in the order that we will go. Second panelist is, again, a good friend, Carolina Goich. Carolina is a very well-known and highly respected politician or should I say former politician in Chile. She actually led the Chilean Christian Democratic Party as the president in 2016 and 17, and has been a senator. And she's from the Magallanes region, a beautiful region of Chile, the Antarctica region of Chile. She is now leading SECAN with the new Center for Cancer Health Policy, Cancer-related health policies and control with Bruno Nervi, and is based at Católica University. An economist by training, she was instrumental in developing the national cancer law in Chile, which is a really outstanding example of an inclusive and collaborative process to develop a law, one of the first of its kind in the world. Our third panelist is, again, my good friend Ricardo Baptista Leite, again, a four-term politician, former stroke current. He has actually taken lead from the parliament, from his duties to lead this new agency for health AI, the global agency for digital and artificial intelligence that focuses on healthcare with the aim of actually making a safe AI and digital solutions available to all countries around the world. He is, again, a polymath, and he does many things. I don't know how. He chairs the Global Health Policy Lab, which is a collaboration between Harvard Health System Innovation Lab, Charité in Berlin, and also Berkeley Foundation in Germany. He also founded and is the president of Unite, that brings together parliamentarians from 110 countries, very active, and some in our work at the Global Health Policy Lab would inform the work of these legislators. He also chairs the Center for Global Health at Nova Information Management School, and is founder of Creating Health. He's also a practicing physician. Actually, during the pandemic, he was working in the A&E department. Even though he's an infectious disease physician, he put on his gown, and he was working in any department in Lisbon. So we welcome Ricardo. And finally, our good friend and former student and alum, Beth Ann Lopez. Beth is a serial entrepreneur. She was a founder of Swipe RX, and that utilized an app for pharmacists in Vietnam and Cambodia. Then she established Dokusan, a very successful marketplace that brought together physicians, nurses, and consumers in Vietnam. And she now has a new venture actually on the West Coast in the USA, which currently she's actually developing. She's really passionate about transforming consumer access to healthcare, and she's utilizing AI solutions in her startups. So I'm going to start with Junaid. Junaid, welcome, great to see you. And you're at the forefront of AI solutions at Microsoft. You see many of these each day. I'm sure more so than many people have breakfast. So tell us about the frontier. How is that changing? And should we be encouraged, or are there issues? So over to you.
Rafat, thank you very, very much. And I hope everybody can hear me okay. And it's a real privilege to be here with this distinguished panel. So as you mentioned, the exam question that I have a privilege of focusing on is how might we, and I invite you all to be part of this question and exam question with me, transform the practice of medicine with trusted, reliable, human-centered artificial intelligence. And I say it in that specific way because I don't think it's artificial intelligence for the sake of artificial intelligence. I think when we're thinking about innovation in this space, we have to ensure that the innovations we come up with are trusted, are reliable, and actually make a difference for the end beneficiaries, be they the physicians, the nurses, the pharmacists, the care providers on the one side, or ultimately the patients on the other side. And one of the reasons I continue to practice is I see a huge delta between the innovations I hear about Monday to Thursday with my Microsoft hat, but then when I'm in the National Health Service or in clinic, those innovations aren't necessarily getting to patients. And there is multiple challenges for us to figure out around the adoption system and within which we wish to put these innovations. And one of the reflections I think that Microsoft has had over the last 15, 20 years of kind of looking at healthcare is not just a set of engineering challenges that need to be addressed. You really need to understand the context of the problem within which you're trying to innovate, and also have practitioners that can come and say, well, if we were to do this, does it actually fit within a workflow? Does it fit within an existing workflow and the practice of medicine for a healthcare professional or for an administrator? And if it's too far removed, it probably won't work. And I reflect that it was interesting. I joined during the pandemic, and you take technologies such as telemedicine or video consultations, not a new innovation by any stretch of the imagination, technologies that had been around for about a decade, but it took a pandemic for the professions to agree that that might be a suitable way for us to consult. And that's kind of maintained part of the course. And so I think where we are today is that we have an increasing need for technologies to make a difference in a world and in a context where we have massive supply and demand mismatch. We have a world in which we have increasing comorbidities, increasing aging populations, increasing rising citizen expectations around what they wish for healthcare. Yet at the other side, we have huge workforce challenges. The World Health Organization articulated pre-pandemic that we would have 14 million less doctors, nurses, and pharmacists on the planet than what society would need. And I would argue that in a post-pandemic analysis, I think that's probably closer to 25 million by 2030. So in the next 6 years, we may have a shortfall of 25 million less healthcare professionals, and therefore, what might be the innovation and technology opportunity for us. And the kinds of things that we focus on is really the AI space. And in this post-GPT era that we live in, we're looking at a range of different applications that will allow us to unlock the potential of large language models, frontier language models, to really start to imagine what the future of healthcare could look like. The next 1 to 2 to 3 years for that will probably be non-clinical facing innovations, so things that focus on the burden, administration, arguably the boring elements of healthcare, whilst we're working with regulators, research organizations, and others to truly articulate what the clinical benefits could be. So one example of this that we are looking at the moment and that we've piloted in the UK would be if you take something such as prostate cancer planning and radiotherapy planning, that process can take an oncologist anywhere between 30 minutes to 3 hours to review every slice of a CT scan and essentially map out tumor versus non-tumor. We've taken a technology from Xbox, adapted it and applied that in novel ways, and we can shorten that 30 to 3 hours situation to something more like 10 to 13 minutes, working hand in hand with an oncologist by the side. It's almost a co-pilot, if you will, for radiotherapy planning. So rather than 6 patients a day having planning done, we could probably look at somewhere more like 6 patients an hour. And if we extend that further, what might we be able to do if we bundled imaging modalities with electronic records and pathology? Might we be able to change pathways of care? So that's one example, and there'll be many others for us to discuss. But we live in an exciting time where almost biology, medicine, and technology are converging. And now we have the tools at our disposal to have huge human impact at the global scale in the future too.
Wonderful, thank you, Junaid. I'll come back to you in the second round of exam questions about some of the promising digital health and AI solutions that are emerging that might address the challenges that you've identified. But some takeaways, you talked about trusted, reliable, human-centered AI. And you also said the right thing, context. Context is everything. That's what I teach my students. If you don't understand the context, technology solutions will not work. And you also talked about the translation gap, how long it takes to get new technologies into practice. And I think you were quite generous saying that technologies that were a decade old were adopted during the pandemic. Actually, technologies that were 3 decades old or even more were adopted during the pandemic. So there's a real issue in relation to translation gap. And I cannot think of a better person than to ask Carolina. As a legislator, you have all these innovations coming through in terms of diagnostics, health technologies, vaccines, new medicines, now digital and AI solutions. How do legislators react to this incredible collection of innovations that are coming through? And what would you advise innovators who are now going to innovate as part of this hackathon, and also Beth, who's setting up a new venture? I think you're on mute.
Now it's working, huh?
Absolutely.
I said it is not an easy issue to work together with political times and in the political world with scientific, with researchers, and to get in touch with what the patient needs and the time for the patients. I have been working, as you said, in the parliament. I worked 16 years, and I was in charge of the health committee, and I am responsible for more than 50 laws, I think, that have to do with health care. You said the most important, our national cancer law here in Chile. And I know how the political world works, or how it doesn't work, probably. You know? And after that, and in that time also, I work a lot as social worker with civil society. And we work together with you, with Jorge Jimenez in the National Cancer Forum Foundation, working in what today is our cancer law. That is a law that we built bottom up. So I know also the word and the language and how works civil society. By the other side, today I am here in the university, and Universidad Católica de Chile. I'm working in this great project, you say, our SECAN, Center for Cancer Prevention and Control with Bruno, that is the largest research project founded by the National Science Agency in Chile. And our objective is to put together different researchers from different disciplines and work to impact public policies, not only for making a good research and also how in the ministry or politician in the parliament or in other side can use what these researchers are making, are giving. So my main work is to connect all those works. I am also a survivor. 11 years ago, I think, I have my cancer and my treatment. So I also know what the patients and their family feels when you have the diagnosis. I think is the most difficult moment in a cancer. So I think the main issue or the most exciting, probably the most exciting issue today is how we build a bridge between patients, the health teams, scientists, politicians, policymakers, thinking in the better things for people, for their family. That's very exciting for me. And it is possible, but we need to work together. And many times, the timeline for politicians is different. For the time for technological changes. Technological changes are faster than the time we need to pass a law in the parliament. You know, here in Chile, we have some laws that have been in the parliament 10 years, 12 years, and then we have 2 or 3 governments, 2 or 3 presidents of a different party. So that's, you have different authorities and priorities in health. So how to guarantee that the advances we have in technology and for patients have the stability patient needs and the health system needs is one of the problems we have to solve. And also, I think we can deal with innovation in policymakers and politicians in 2 ways. First, with clear rules, thinking in a long term, with a good ecosystem. That is the best way. But unfortunately, it's not the way we have in Chile, and probably in other countries that today are connected and we are working in this hackathon. What happened in Chile probably is more like isolated initiatives that depends in personal or individual leaderships. It's very different from the private sector or the public sector. In the private sector, you innovate more, and the public sector is more difficult. You have many rules and more times and those changes. So how can we put them together in a collaborative way? We have to work on that, and I think this opportunity is very good for that. Especially something I like very much to say is how we put the patients in the center. We often have different expectations among patients, researchers, and politicians. Patients' life in an emergency, especially in cancer, and the scientific world requires time for technological advance, and the political world is slow to translate into laws. So how artificial intelligence or innovation or technology help us to work together and to make that works in a long term.
Fantastic. Thank you, Carolina. Really incredibly valuable insights. As a patient, as someone who's brought the community together, who's worked across multiple domains, but also as a legislator, as leading a major party, as well as head of the health committee, and very important experiences that you've shared. And a few takeaways. First, around this creation of an ecosystem. We often talk about it, and we do regularly, but these ecosystems don't exist. And in fact, one of the reasons we do these hackathons and the incubations is to try and begin to stimulate development of these ecosystems in our participating and collaborating countries. You also talked about collaboration, the importance of collaboration, but someone needs to build the bridges. And I'm going to ask Ricardo on that. So I'm just going to give him a heads up. Very important to build those bridges. And the very important, again, the translation gap that Junaid mentioned, this time due to the delay in the regulatory pathways or the laws or the directives that prevent adoption of innovations into practice. How can we address what is really an innovator's dilemma for operating at the cutting edge, but the laws and regulations take a long time. But we have Ricardo to the rescue. First of all, I think in establishing Unite and also the Health AI, the new global agency, in effect, we are trying to act as a bridge. So maybe if you could elaborate on that. And I also want to come to you regarding, as a second part of your exam questions, as Junaid said, to talk about how the Global Health Policy Lab that we're jointly started, how this might help accelerate development of these laws. So over to you, Ricardo.
Well, thank you so much, Rifat. It's so good to see you and to be among such distinguished speakers and to feel the excitement coming from around the world, really, through these hubs. As you mentioned, and thank you also for the kind introduction, I'm leading now the Global Agency for Responsible AI in Health, Health AI, a nonprofit agency based in Geneva, and working in partnership with governments, with the World Health Organization and many other international organizations towards building regulatory capacity in countries so that we can ensure safe, quality, effective AI-driven tools actually reach our health systems, and that we are capable of also putting in place post-market surveillance mechanisms that are capable of ensuring that these technologies continue to be safe and effective even after they are deployed. The goal here is, and I think this is extremely important when we're discussing this topic, is not just to put up regulation as some people see as a barrier to innovation, but exactly the opposite. What we need is an ecosystem that can build trust towards the technology, can accelerate adoption of the technology, and hopefully create new pathways to access to markets for businesses. And this also includes low and middle income countries, not just high income countries. Right now, we're seeing really a widening of the digital divide that is quite concerning in the sense that we have technologies that are emerging to the market that have the potential or will have the potential to help health systems leapfrog into the future and be able to transform our disease-driven models from the past towards systems focused on well-being and quality of life in the future. But that will not help us from a general perspective or a global perspective if we don't ensure that those technologies and those transformations are actually accessible for everyone around the world. Moreover, we know that the younger part of the world, the true youth of the world, are actually among the low and middle income countries. And therefore, the future, in a way, is headquartered in Africa and Latin America, in Southeast Asia, and we need to untap that potential, creating new markets, and everyone can. And so in that sense, we believe that our work can hopefully move us in that direction, and also, in a way, turn the world around, where innovations that come from the global south can actually be used in the global north, where low resource settings lead to innovative solutions. Well, those solutions can sometimes open new pathways of innovation and inspiration for richer countries around the world. And Rifat, you've used many times in the past the M-Pesa example from Kenya in the financial sector. We believe that that kind of innovation can also be seen here in the health sector. And we're already seeing some examples when the ecosystem is right. And it's creating those bridges, creating those ecosystems. And our role is really to help translate those international standards to be able to be adapted to the local level and to help countries make sure that they are capable of validating tools. If you think of it, just like we already do with medicines and medical devices. So on Health AI, I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have, but maybe I'll transition to your second question, which is around the joint work that we're doing with the Global Health Policy Lab that has been recently launched in Berlin, and as a collaborative between the Harvard Health Systems Innovations Lab and also the Charité Center for Global Health. And basically this Global Health Policy Lab has one goal, which may seem simplistic, but the goal is really ambitious. And so it's a tremendous work we have ahead of us, which is becoming the one-stop shop for the world for all of the laws and policies related to health. This is actually something that exists in the WHO Constitution. It's actually a WHO responsibility, but sadly it has never happened. And we believe this is something that could be extremely useful. And from my work working with parliamentarians in more than 100 countries around the world through the Unite Parliamentarians Network, it has become clear to us that many legislators and politicians end up many times reinventing the wheel when it comes to policy and health. When there are amazing innovations when it comes to policy out there that we're just not tapping into. So having all of those laws and policies in one place is the first step on a cloud-based database. But the second step is using artificial intelligence to have a small language model so that we can actually develop new policies and legislations, learning from the best. We believe this can be a very powerful tool, not only for policymakers, but even for citizens who can actively tap into that kind of technology, into that kind of database using AI, and creating new ideas to, in a way, push their policymakers forward to science-based policymaking, focusing more on health outcomes results. It's a big endeavor, but we need to start somewhere.
Absolutely, and a very exciting opportunity. Again, using AI in helping develop, accelerate the development of legislations and directives and policies and laws to bridge that gap. And you mentioned, Ricardo, very rightly, the widening of the digital divide. So in the second round, I'm going to ask yourself as well as Carolina and Junaid to also consider how new innovations can help address this digital divide, but also the issue of algorithmic bias. So just a heads up for the second round. You also mentioned that there's an opportunity to learn from so-called global south, so experience from low and middle income countries and high-income countries, and we need some examples of this. And I cannot think of a better person than Beth, who's actually done this. She has, after her master's at Harvard, she moved to Southeast Asia, and she developed 2 very successful ventures in Cambodia as well as Vietnam. And now she's using DocuSign experience to bring this innovations to the West Coast of the USA, but I think she can tell us more about them better than I. So Beth, over to you. Welcome.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Rifat. It's really nice to be here with everyone today. So to give you guys some context, DocuSign is a healthcare marketplace based in Vietnam. It connects patients and doctors together because finding the right kind of healthcare provider was such a challenge. There was not much information online about where to go and get healthcare. A lot of the practitioners were still working on pen and paper and didn't use any sort of digital means of connecting with patients. And so a typical experience would be that someone gets sick or has a sick family member. They would show up at a public hospital because they don't know about their different options of getting care, wait in line for hours. They would not be sure about what type of doctor they're going to be seeing. It could be a medical student, some 22-year-old, that was undergoing their medical training, or it could be a very top practitioner that had seen thousands of patients in their career. And it was such a problem and causing such anxiety for people. And I just thought that, man, this is a big information asymmetry that we actually have the power to address. Vietnam was a very tech-savvy country. Many people have smartphones. Internet proliferation is over 80% there. And actually, I would joke that being able to use the 4G and 3G is better than some places in Boston where we would have blackouts with the cell phone networks. And so we ended up building this healthcare marketplace that connected thousands of doctors, clinics, and hospitals across the country with millions of patients. And so last year, over 5 million people used the DocuSign platform to find and get care. And that being said, even with this new kind of like technical innovation with this marketplace, we had a telemedicine component, we had a home self-testing component, very innovative kind of tech things that were part of the platform. The most used feature in the platform was our customer service hotline. And so it was literally a phone number that people could call and they would talk to a human. Because one thing that I learned from DocuSign and being a practitioner, someone on the ground helping people to get healthcare, is that we don't consume healthcare the same way we consume e-commerce things through Amazon, or the local version of that is Lazada. It's not an apples to oranges comparison. And so it wasn't just that someone wanted to find a pediatrician in their area, but they wanted to find a pediatrician in their area that took their specific insurance, who also had experience dealing with kids with autism because their kid had certain comorbidities. And they wanted to discuss this with a person and just get more information because of the complex nature of getting healthcare. And so when generative AI started taking off, I remember using ChatGPT for the first time and having this kind of like mind-blowing experience, like, this is an incredible source of information and knowledge that people now can get. At the time, it wasn't available in Vietnam. And I started seeing some studies come out of the US as well about ChatGPT itself passing the US medical licensing exam. Other studies about different LLMs scoring higher than practicing physicians on measures of empathy and explaining things clearly to patients. And in a country in which there are so many inequities and kind of difficulties in getting the right kind of healthcare information and accessing care, I saw an incredible opportunity. And so we launched this AI platform in Vietnam called DocuSign AI that essentially hooked up to our network of hospitals and clinics and allowed people to discuss their medical issues. And then it would, based on the content of their conversation, recommend them the right kind of practitioner for their needs. So it linked to public hospitals, linked to telemedicine, also linked to home testing for people who were, actually a lot of people were kind of freaking out about highly stigmatized issues, such as people having like scares around sexually transmitted infections, and chatting with this AI bot for literally hours and hours. Some of our top users used it for over 36 hours within a week. And so I'd never seen such engagement in a healthcare app before, which usually people use it kind of quickly and then move on to whatever else once they're feeling better. But because of that, I thought that this is something that can really change the way that people access healthcare. And it was working in Vietnam. It was something that we developed, in, as Rifat says, the global south. And because it was such a new, kind of something that hadn't been done before, I saw that there were also very similar issues in healthcare access in the United States. And so, I ended up in process of exiting DocuSign and starting a new venture that is like essentially like an AI powered WebMD, connecting patients to large networks of doctors in the US, helping them to navigate their insurance, deal with all of the normal healthcare information asymmetries that normal people get. And I think something for us to be conscious of as we build companies, as we create policies, is the effect that these kind of things can have on normal people as well. Because often I find that creating new things, it's easier to make money solving so-called like rich people problems. It's easier to, kind of find a scalable business model sometimes doing B2B things. There was recently a startup in the US that raised $18 million Series A for digitizing faxes in healthcare. And I'm sure they will, make a lot of money and stuff, but it's not going to be something that directly impacts the end user or the end patient. And so we all have the opportunity to harness this new technology that I think is the biggest thing since the internet has happened, such vast potential to help people. And let's make sure that it goes to patients, not just to infrastructure, to the so-called boring things on the back end.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Beth. I'm going to start the second round, but I just want to try and maybe connect the dots, because one of the important themes that came through in the discussions was this translation gap and the delays in the sort of legislation, regulatory pathways. As an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, what were the challenges that you experienced when you were bringing these ventures that were at the cutting edge, where the laws or the regulations did not exist? How did you navigate this space?
Yeah, I think each stage is constant hustle, constant kind of like iterating, figuring out what's going to work, and mostly finding things that don't work. I think one of the big challenges in working in a place where there wasn't clear legislation around telemedicine, around home testing, was that there was also, I guess it's not even just the legislation, but it's also just kind of like knowledge of different types of interventions by consumers. So if I can give like one example, DocuSign was the first private company in Vietnam to do home STD self-testing. We got inspiration to sell these test kit boxes that people could order online. It would have a rapid test for HIV that someone could test for in the comfort of their home. It also included like a urine collection cup that people could take, and then we would ship usually via motorbike to a nearby laboratory. They would do the analysis on the sample and then send the result to the patient. And so they could get care very conveniently, discreetly. And that worked really well for STDs. It worked well for COVID during that pandemic. But there are certain things that it didn't work well for because there were, I guess, like people were scared. They didn't understand how it worked. So there was a dengue outbreak that was going on in Vietnam. And we saw that there were a lot of people that were worried that their kids were having like fevers. They didn't really know what to do. Some people would have to travel from the provinces to hospitals in the cities. That would take a lot of time out of their day, have to take a day or two off of work to go and bring the kid in when they weren't sure if the kid actually had dengue or not, or if it was just a fever. And so we released this home test kit for dengue collection. It was a little rapid test. It was just a finger prick you could do on the kid, and then you would get the results of whether the kid had dengue or not within 15 minutes. And this tech had been on the market for literally decades too. They're the exact same rapid test that was used in hospitals and clinics across the country. We just kind of repackaged it and made it easy for people to use at home. And so we started selling these home dengue test kits. And then all of a sudden I started seeing some news articles come out in the press. And people were saying like, very dangerous home test kits for dengue. You should not test your kid at home. They even quoted a doctor in a public hospital who said that using a rapid test kit could cause your kid to go into cardiac arrest. And it was like, what on earth? Like, how can doing a finger prick test cause cardiac arrest in your kid? And we saw that also, like, people were making a lot of money selling these tests that you would have to go to get in the hospital. Usually the markup was 2 or 3 times the price of the test kit, versus we were selling it at about like 1.5x like markup. And so we realized that, okay, we pulled the product, even though it was something that could help a lot of people, because it was easy to scare people. It was I think we didn't do a good enough job educating the market, educating the groups of physicians about the power of home testing. And then I think that was a big lesson learned too, that even if you have something that solves a problem directly, if it's too new and you don't involve enough people, it can still end up failing.
Excellent. Thank you, Beth, for these really wonderful insights and case studies, and some important messages to take away. So you talked about constant iteration, really not just horizon scanning, but actually understanding what works and what doesn't work, and make the decision to actually move and sometimes to pivot. And then you also talked about ensuring user engagement. not just users of the end product, but also other important stakeholders, doctors, but also even legislators, in ensuring that the innovation is not too far ahead of the game. And you also mentioned, scaling up solutions for everyone. And I think that's the theme I want to pick up in the second round of questions. And I'm going to start with Junaid. Could you tell us some of the exciting AI solutions that are coming through that you're working on at Microsoft? But how can we ensure that not only are these trusted, reliable, safe, and effective, human-centered, but also scalable and equitable? That's a difficult exam question.
It's a difficult question. And I'm reminded of being your student once again when you used to give me essays to do and trying to answer it in the style of an essay. So maybe a few things to consider, and maybe building a little bit of what Beth and Ricardo were saying. So there are probably some things I can share with you, but there are some things that we're working on which are still somewhat in stealth. So we'll just caveat a little bit on that. But the interesting thing in kind of a post-GPT world, if you will, is the GPT technology is democratized for everyone to have access to in every industry, and it sets a new baseline. So overnight, nearly, suddenly, the financial sector, the education sector, the healthcare sector, all industries were able to have, if you will, the power of AI in their hands. And so if the knowledge of the universe can be inside one of these devices, what might that mean for the future of any of these industries? And we would hypothecate that the two biggest industries that will probably be most affected by this are probably going to be the education industry and the healthcare industry in particular. And so suddenly, if you've now got knowledge which is democratized from a healthcare setting, I think that changes the game in a variety of different ways. So one thing for us to think about is, if we've got this shortage that we all agree on from a workforce perspective, but we accept that patients and society need access to healthcare, where will they go for information? So already I would have patients coming to me today with from subsectors, so people with relative degrees of health literacy and knowledge coming to me with a search that they've already done on search engine of choice, with a proposed diagnosis that they have, and I have to figure out when they come to see me in the 10 minutes that I have with them, whether that's the right assumption or the wrong assumption. In the future, will they have come already having a pre-consult with a co-pilot and come to me with other information? And again, is that accurate or inaccurate? TBC. But suddenly, the knowledge that exists in the heads of healthcare professionals, I think we should imagine where that knowledge is now in the hands of patients and societies. Does that change the power dynamic that has historically existed between patients and healthcare professionals? One of the things that has set healthcare professionals apart in the past is this knowledge that we have accumulated through 6 years at medical school and then training afterwards. If some of that knowledge is democratized, what does that do to the relationship between doctors and patients moving forward over society? And indeed, could some of this allow physicians to operate at the top of their license? So get nurses, pharmacists, PAs, doctors, and others working at the top of theirs, and access to more generalized information. So there, if we had time, I'd love to do a demo with you to show you how empathic the responses of some of these models can be, changing the empathy in terms of even the conversations and the script that I would have with patients, making it better, perhaps, than it would be in the past. But we have to do everything, I think, with these parameters of responsible AI that Ricardo mentioned. So when I think of responsible AI, I would break it down into the responsible AI from the development side, the deployment side, the impact on the end user, and then the regulation. And if you break down responsible AI even further, you have to think about features such as safety and privacy, inclusiveness and fairness, with a bedrock of transparency and accountability. And when you were talking about biases previously, we live in a world of bias today. Most of the knowledge on the internet, you could argue, is biased. It has gender bias against it. It has an ethnicity bias. So we have that. When we're building models, how do we ensure that we don't propagate some of those biases in our practice and our translation into healthcare? And I think that's a collective responsibility on all of us to ensure that the benchmarking data upon which we do these tests are appropriate. The way that we build models really thinks about bias at the outset, and thinking about equity at the outset of what we do. And then we challenge ourselves to do better in the future than we've done in the past. Hopefully that begins to answer some of it. The things that we're doing, we're working on anything that relates to accelerating the pace of precision medicine, thinking about what we might do in the imaging space today, be that for radiology or pathology, thinking about what types of interactions people would have across the human-computer interface. But we're also beginning to do deeper research in the space of responsible AI. What tools and evaluation metrics need to be built into technology? What safeguards need to be built into technology to ensure responsible deployment, again, from a provider perspective, a patient perspective, a safety perspective, to enable regulators to do their work to the best of their abilities too.
Wonderful. Thank you, Junaid, for these really valuable insights and also very important sort of guidance to our budding entrepreneurs and innovators joining the hackathon. I want to move to Carolina. Again, you've heard some of the innovations that are coming through, and you've been a legislator, a policymaker, a patient, and now leading SICAN, the new center in Chile. And you talked about some of the challenges. How do you see the promise of digital health and AI in the context of Chile and Latin American countries? What are the opportunities, and in your view, what are the potential challenges that need to be overcome?
I think we have a lot of opportunities, but we need clear rules, and we need to work in some issues that are not easy in our countries. So I think it's data. For us in SICAN, it's very difficult to have good data. And when you speak about sensible data, health data, about people, you know, you need good systems that not only have the information of the data, also in a secure way that can work with the hospital. And in my region, that is the southernmost region of the world, you know, is Magallanes and Cabo de Hornos, Antarctica, how you can be connected in other contexts. So I think, and it is useful also for the teams, for the work you are going to do today, that we need to have good data for policymakers and to inform policymakers, but it's also important to develop good, secure information system. That's very difficult. Probably the technological way is easier than the regulatory way. We are a country that have advanced a lot in neural rights and protect them for people, but we still don't pass the regulation for personal data in the parliament. So that's because it's very difficult. And probably many times, if you have more rules, more regulations, innovation is slower. So how can you work with that? You have to protect patients and people, but by the other side, promote innovation. Also, I think it's very important for us in the center and for you as teams to make things that can work in the small world, you know, in the hospital or in the laboratory or in this room, and also can work for all the country. Many projects are very good as pilot, but when you go for large scale, it's different. And I want you to think in that, how the things that work here on a small scale also can work in a bigger scale, if we want to impact public policies. I think also the fact that it's very important to understand very well the problem. many times we look the problem and make our diagnosis and find the solution by our own side. You know, I am a politician, so I'm looking as a politician. I am a researcher, and I look with that side. So we need to look all the side of the problem. Thinking the patient, speak with patients, listen, and really listen different experience about it. So we have a better understanding of the problem before doing a develop or planning how to solve it. I think many times it's very good to use more time for that. And after that, it is easier to go faster in the solution. And also want to say that many times prevention is not the first issue. And it's very important thinking in prevention, especially with technology. We can do many things, and that's for cancer and for other disease. So how can we encourage people to take care of themselves, and give tools that are useful, that are simple, that can be here in my smartphone with the memory I have, and don't need to take out other information, you know, that are useful for people, and also that are useful for the teams, the health teams, and to speak them together, not just for one or the other. I think technology is changing the way we are working in health, and how we understand how we work in health. Then I want to say also that thinking in early diagnosis is very important. In cancer, that's a clue issue, you know, and how we make smaller the time between the first symptoms and the diagnosis, and then the treatment, and how patients can do give better information and work together with the health teams. And after that, just say a sentence about how technology can help us to work with patients and have a better experience about the disease, and work with the family, with the community, to improve patient support. I think we can do many things. We are working in SECAN in those areas, but we have many work to do. So we need you to think, and I hope also to be involved in our project. I invite you, Bruno. All of them are invited to join after this hackathon SECAN.
Wonderful. Thank you, Caroline. As always, fantastic insights. And I'm sure SECAN, which is the first and the largest center for cancer policy and control in Latin America, will be very successful. I'm really privileged to be associated with it. So some sort of nuggets from your last comments, and also echoing what Ricardo also said, sort of regulation as an enabler, not something to stifle innovation or the adoption of innovation. Very, very important. Secondly, and this came through in earlier presentations from Junaid and Beth and others, is think of scale, and think of scale from inception. I think very important message to our innovators and entrepreneurs participating in the hackathon today. And something that is really important and close to my heart is, define the problem you're solving. Whose problem are you solving? What is it precisely? Saying that, oh, mental health is a large burden for the world. That's like the Pacific Ocean. So be very precise about the problem you're trying to solve and understand it well. And that requires listening to users and stakeholders, and spending time and developing solutions that improve their experience, as Beth did with the solution that she developed in Dokusan. And maybe a final word is focus on prevention and early diagnosis. This is where the huge gaps are. And this is where the big challenges, of course. How do we change human behavior? how do we motivate individuals and health teams to change the way they work, as Junaid said, to enable them to, in terms of health workers, to operate at the top of their license, but also change the way they work. That's not easy to do. And I can say this as a physician. We are not programmed to change easily. So fantastic insights, thank you. And very good segue to Ricardo. And I know, Ricardo, you're passionate about scaling up innovations to benefit many, but also to ensure that these solutions are ethical. So how do we ensure scale? How do we ensure equity? But how do we ensure that the solutions are within the sort of ethical frameworks that guide service provision?
Well, that's a major challenge, and of course, part of our mission at Health AI. But if I may, just taking a step back after listening to the different comments, I think it's very important in an age when we're all, in a way, pushing for universal health coverage, understanding that right now what is happening under that umbrella is we're seeing a lot of old technologies and old management procedures being exported from high-income countries to low and middle-income countries. And so, in other words, we're exporting broken, disease-driven models to countries instead of using the power of technology for low-resource settings to actually leapfrog towards the future. I too have a past as a policymaker, and I know how it's easier to inaugurate a new hospital and be on the front page of a newspaper instead of doing the digital transformation that a health system actually could benefit much more than building an old kind of edifice or building within your health system that probably you don't even have the human resources or the capital to maintain in the long run. I think that when we talk about universal health coverage, I think it is very important that we ensure that we look at this in a way that, in terms of outcomes, what do we want to achieve in terms of better health outcomes for every citizen, including those most vulnerable, those most marginalized in our populations, and not just trying to replicate broken models from rich countries into poorer countries. The second issue is regarding the way health systems are uptaking technology. Sadly, even among richer countries, I'm originally from Portugal, and we see how a lot of the money that's being pumped into a so-called digital transition is no more than actually buying computers or investing in technology that replicates analog processes into a digital format. That does not change anything. On the contrary, it gets people very angry because they spend much more time now with digital tools to do work that they used to do faster in an analog world. And so that is not what we want. And that is a wasted opportunity and a tremendous waste of scarce resources. And so what we should aim for is a digital transformation in the sense that digital technologies, and going back to Junaid's comment, these digital technologies are a means and not an end. These digital technologies are a means towards making a more compassionate, more human-centric health system by freeing up our healthcare workers, by freeing up the human capital in our health systems so they actually have more time to be with patients. So we can get the screen out of the way between the physician and the patient, and that we can reconnect humans within our health system. We talk a lot about healthcare. We typically focus more on health and less on care. We need to bring compassion back into the conversation. And so that being said, going to your question directly, it is extremely important that the way we deploy technologies, and particularly now with the rise of AI, which I believe over the next 2 decades, when we're going to stop discussing the separation between digital health and AI, because everything that's digital is going to have an AI component. And in that future, we need to make sure that from the beginning, from now, we are building up an ecosystem that is designed from start to have those principles that we were all discussing of inclusivity, of fairness, trustworthiness, transparency, making sure that safety and data protection are all there. but doing this in a way that is bottom up, in which everyone is involved. That is why we believe that more than talking about a regulatory environment, we need to really create an ecosystem that fosters the technology in a way that it is actually accessible for all, but also benefits everyone. And that depends on design. Maybe I'll just end on this point, Rifat, to reinforce what I'm saying. There's a very interesting book called Power and Progress that looked at the evolution of technology over the last 1,000 years. And one thing that has happened over those 1,000 years is the people who developed the technology typically say, this technology is going to save the world. What normally happened was that it wasn't exactly that. The technology typically benefited a very small portion of the population. However, there were some examples throughout those 1,000 years of history in which technology actually had a global impact throughout all of the population. The difference was because the technology was designed from its inception towards its deployment into the market in a way that it was ensured to be fair and equitable by design. And that's why we believe it is so important that while we're still early in this new wave of AI-driven technologies, that we get this right. And that's why we at Health AI, we like to say AI can save lives. Let's get the regulations right, which in other words means let's make sure we build an ecosystem that can foster innovation, can foster access to technology, can lead to trust, that leads to adoption, at the same time that we're keeping citizens safe and building a world in which technology has the end game of leading to better health outcomes for all.
Fantastic, as always, Ricardo. Some very important sort of nuggets. As Junaid also talked about democratization of knowledge, and this is what digital and AI solutions will enable us to do. And you said, this is going to be a critical component of a new ecosystem that is where the policies and regulations are more enabling than hindering. An ecosystem that is inclusive, that is very much person-centered, and very importantly, benefits many, and not just a few. We talk about not just value for money with these solutions, but actually value for many, that including those who have difficulties in accessing services. And you said the solutions need to be equitable by design, very important. You also said that it's very important to focus on problems, but also think about the outcomes that the solution is going to achieve and who's going to benefit. I think that's a very important message to the participants. And finally, a very interesting observation that this digital and AI, these are not separate. Every digital solution will have an AI component. So we should talk about this convergence that is happening. So really fantastic insights for our panelists, for our participants. So to close the panel, I'm going to ask Beth, as a serial entrepreneur, you've heard our distinguished panelists, including yourself. What kind of advice would you provide to our participants, especially ensuring that the solutions that are developed are going to be equitable at scale, and some of the challenges that you might experience? How should they negotiate these challenges?
Yeah, so I think when you are starting a company, you should think with a really big vision on how do you want the world or the health system or society to change. Because if you start with a really, really big problem, it will be easier for you to attract wonderful talent. It will be a North Star to what your company is trying to succeed at. At the same time as having a big vision, start with a very specific, small problem for a very specific group of users that you want to solve. Because if we take a huge vision like improving healthcare access, and you try to do everything, you try to influence like the physicians and the kind of like back end stuff, and then you try to do some consumer sort of like play, and then you also get into another kind of thing. You end up creating a solution that everyone thinks is like okay and no one is excited about, which is it's much better to have a small group of like fanatical users in the early days, because it means that you are solving a real problem for a real group of people. And then you can worry about scale after you get those, say, maybe first 10 fanatical users. Then you can grow it to 100 fanatical users by talking to them, really understanding what their issues are, understanding what part of your feature set is the most impactful for them. What is the need to have? And if you can get to 100 users, you can get to 1,000. And from 1,000, I mean, you can literally get to millions. But it starts with solving a very specific problem, but always keep the North Star and a larger vision for what you're trying to accomplish in mind.
Great. So focus, always think about the purpose, the North Star, don't deviate from that. I mean, iterate in the process, but never lose sight of what problem you're trying to solve and the outcomes you want to achieve. And I like your message regarding scaling. You know, if you reach 100, you can reach 1,000. If you reach 1,000, you can reach 10,000. And it's this sort of logarithmic game. It's not a sort of a linear process. So very really great advice to our participants. So I'm going to share my presentation once again. And the purpose of this is to share with you again our distinguished panelists and ask all the participants to join me in thanking them for their words of wisdom and them sharing experience with all the participants. So huge thanks to Junaid, Carolina, Ricardo, and Beth. Thank you for making time, and thank you for joining us as part of this process. And before I hand over to Shay for the next steps, I would like to invite the Chiclayo Hub from Peru. Hopefully they're now online and they'll be able to join us to say hi. Chiclayo, are they able to join us to say hello? Yes, oh, okay, great. So maybe a few words.
Hello, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Here in Chiclayo, this is the public. They are the state in attention for this presentation. Thank you very much. We are very pleased to listen, and they are the expectation of Chiclayo, Peru.
Wonderful. Welcome, Chiclayo, Peru, and we're really delighted to have you as one of the hubs, and look forward to your participation. And I saw earlier in the message that Kiev hub, they had to go into sort of safety because of sirens, and then glad to hear that they had to go to shelter and they're now back and safe and sound. And we really appreciate them joining this hackathon in such difficult times. So please again join me in appreciating Kiev and Ukraine joining this hackathon. And finally, I'm going to hand over to Shay. Again, huge thanks to everyone that made this hackathon possible. And I'm going to ask Shay to tell us about the next steps. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much for your plea.
Yes, no, thank you, Rifat. And this brings us to an end, I think, of the official welcome with the hackathon. But I feel very inspired by this, and I think it's a good transition into the hackathon program. So in terms of next steps, each of us will go back into our respective hubs and begin with Hack 101. So this will be the end of the panel and the welcome. We won't have time to reconvene again, but we'll go into Hack 101, mentoring, and you'll work in your respective groups. So from us at the Health System Innovation Lab, we'd like to thank you for your time and we look forward to seeing all of you over the next few hours. So thank you.
And happy hacking, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Som. É bom, né? É uma diversão. Bom, pessoal, demorou um pouquinho mais o Hackathon, né? Se estendeu um pouquinho além do previsto no cronograma. Eu gostaria de agradecer a presença do professor Giovanni aqui, graças ao professor Giovanni e ao Marco Bego aqui, que são os líderes de inovação aqui no ecossistema do Hospital das Clínicas da Faculdade de Medicina da USP, que tudo isso está acontecendo, graças a esse voto de confiança, a esse relacionamento profícuo que a gente tem estabelecido nos últimos meses, aí, desenvolvendo a área de inovação. Então, eu pediria uma salva de palmas para o professor Giovanni. Por favor, professor.
Obrigado. Quando eu cheguei aqui, realmente fiquei entusiasmado com essa iniciativa. Aliás, a parceria Mozô Inova HC, cada dia traz alguma coisa, né, que mostra, né, os horizontes da inovação aqui no país, e em particular na área da saúde, né? Então, nós ficamos muito contentes hoje no Hackathon, aqui também parceria da Fundação Getúlio Vargas, e dizer que eu, particularmente, não imaginava aí termos 180 participantes nesse evento, né? E agradecer muito aos mentores, né? Aos nossos mentores aí, com toda a experiência que tem, para poder fazer a mentoria desses nossos grupos aí, de gente que veio do Brasil inteiro aí para participar dessa iniciativa. Eu digo que a saúde só vai conseguir sobreviver e vencer os grandes obstáculos que nós temos no Brasil associado à inovação, né? Um dos grandes exemplos é a questão de saúde digital, né? A saúde digital é um projeto inovador, né? Que traz tecnologia, que ajuda a reduzir custo, inclusiva, reduz desigualdade. Então, grandes caminhos, né, de como nós solucionarmos os grandes desafios da saúde, sem dúvida, são através de vocês, através de iniciativas inovadoras que possam transformar, né, transformar o país. E eu vejo, e nós todos sabemos que saúde é a primeira necessidade do cidadão, né? E eu diria que o maior problema dos governos é a questão de saúde, não só no Brasil, mas no mundo inteiro. É claro que nós, como um país em desenvolvimento, com uma renda per capita ainda média, né, o desafio de dar saúde a uma população que envelhece, que tem maiores dificuldades de acesso, é um desafio tremendo, né? Por isso que acho que essa iniciativa tem grande sentido, e eu fico realmente entusiasmado com a adesão de tanta gente, né, que mostra o interesse pela inovação e, sem dúvida, com a participação fundamental dos nossos mentores. Então, parabéns, realmente, grande iniciativa. Muito obrigado.
Obrigado, professor. Marco, por favor.
O professor já disse tudo, né? Na verdade, a minha função...
É fácil falar depois do professor, né? Só dar tchau.
É só você dar o tchau. Então, é isso que eu vou fazer. Então, primeiro, agradecer aos mentores. Acho que é um trabalho que alguém precisa fazer, e acho que hoje aqui nós temos as pessoas mais capacitadas para fazer isso, para ajudar o pessoal do Hackathon. A gente estava meio enferrujado em Hackathon, fazia muito tempo que a gente não fazia, né? Desde antes da pandemia. Então, hoje é para desenferrujar e a coisa começar a funcionar. Então, desejo muito sucesso a todos vocês, são coisas super importantes, e Digital Health e inteligência artificial é a bola da vez, né? Então, boa sorte, gente. Sucesso aí nessa jornada longa aí de final de semana todo.
Exato.
Obrigado, viu, gente, por acreditar.
A proposta agora é nós, entre os mentores aqui, a gente passar as regras rapidamente, eu acho. Léo, vai passar ou não? A gente vai quebrar protocolo aqui. Não. As regras são feitas para serem quebradas, né?
Pessoal, bom dia mais uma vez. É um prazer recebê-los todos aqui. Vamos então dar início ao Hackathon, de fato. Terminamos as formalidades. Alguns lembretes aqui para os mentores e depois precisam ser transferidos para os participantes. Todos vocês têm até às 10 horas do horário de Brasília de hoje para enviarem as ideias para a plataforma de Harvard. Quem não enviar estará desclassificado do pitch de amanhã. Isso, às 22 horas de hoje. Nós criamos um Google Drive onde as apresentações devem ser feitas utilizando o aplicativo do Google. Então, todas as apresentações devem ser feitas utilizando as apresentações do Google. Até amanhã ao meio-dia precisam ser enviadas e subidas para vocês apresentarem para os juízes. A gente entrou em comum acordo, seguindo as regras da organização, que a gente precisa ter mínimo um grupo de 3 pessoas e no máximo 5. Não podem ter grupos de 2 pessoas. Tá? Então, quem ainda não encontrou um grupo, por favor, nos procurem algum mentor, nós iremos orientar vocês. Tá? O mais importante é, se divirtam, transformem a saúde e contem conosco. Os mentores vão passar sala por sala para se apresentar, tá?
É isso aí. Pessoal, hack, como diz o professor Rifá lá, né? Tá bom? Obrigado, bom hackathon. Lá em cima tem uma salinha de descompressão só dos mentores, para a gente ficar batendo papo lá. Aqui embaixo também tem uma sala de apoio. E nós estamos à disposição aí para qualquer demanda que vocês tiverem. Tá bom? Muito obrigado, viu? Bom hackathon.
Bom trabalho.
Pessoal, todos os mentores, vamos tentar fazer uma foto conjunta dos mentores aqui para registro? Professor Giovanni, pode ser?